So if you can go to that number on the top, respond, and then, or you can text, and we're gonna see what we think is Congo's greatest challenge. So if you guys can take a minute, get out your phones. If you're in the back, if you don't mind wrapping up your conversations and coming into your seats, we want to start the next part of our day, where we want to move a little bit quickly so that we can get to our last 2 sessions, and then we can give you more time to talk to each other. We have a lot of great people that are in here, and we know you all see a lot of great folks on the panel, so more time. And I found my business cards, so if people want cards, I have a few, so I can definitely get those out later. All right, so what do you believe is Congo's greatest challenge? So here we have good governance or government, accessing quality social services, so health, housing, education, lack of infrastructure, the state of the economy, so lack of jobs, high unemployment, fair wages, or everything, it could be other, everything and above or more. So if you go on and vote, put in your vote, let's see what people are thinking are some of the issues. All right, everybody put in a vote? So, put in your vote. I'm gonna give you like a couple more seconds. Let's see. Isn't this kind of fun? This is cool. Like, we're getting all you guys' live data. Before people leave, if you have a piece of paper, or we're gonna hand out some pieces of paper. We wanna find out where everybody is coming from. So if you can tell us like which city in America you're coming from, we'll do this at the end, and how you heard about the conference, because that's really important for us to just collect that data so that we know for next time where we need to continue publicizing this. Okay, so overwhelmingly, it seems like everybody wants to talk about the good governance in government. And unfortunately, we will not be doing that here. We want to kind of stick to some of the other things, but folks will be touching on some of that in their own panels. But for the sake of this conference and for today, we are not here to attack or not attack the government of Congo, but it is good to know in terms of where people are at and what people are thinking. So with that, I am going to get off the stage now, stop boring y'all, and turn it over to the next panel.
All right. Round of applause for Luco real quick. Just, this has been a great... So yes, this is the next panel. We're going to be discussing health and education. And on their own, I think we could probably have a panel on health, and we could probably have a panel on education. But we're going to mix the two. And a lot of what we talked about in the previous panels, we're going to see come together in this health and education panel. So what I'm going to do, instead of reading everybody's bio, I'm just going to because you guys all have the programs, you can see what everybody's bio is, but I'm just going to introduce our panel real quick. So to my left, I've got Ms. Ginette Mukoka, and she's the Development Director for BOMOKO. BOMOKO develops unique initiatives promoting equal access for all Congolese to high-quality healthcare, education, and sustainable agricultural solutions. And also importantly, Ginette is also the co-founder of a platform that is dedicated to bring awareness and solutions for sickle cell disease. Next to Ginette, we've got Mr. Amani Matabaro, and I had the opportunity to speak to him 2 weeks ago. And he is so energetic and so passionate about what he does. So I'm really looking forward to having you guys listen to him and to feed off of some of that passion. But he was born and raised and educated in South Kivu province, and like many, he has experienced been a victim of the nation's violence in that part of the country, and a lot of his experience have led him to do what he does today. So he currently leads the Congo Peace School. And I think the website is available. Go check it out. They're doing really great things, and he'll be able to tell you more about that in a moment. Okay. Next, we've got my brother. I'm a little biased. Ilunga Kalala. He's the chairman of the board of Leja Bulela Inc. He's also a native New Yorker from the Boogie Down. All right, Bronx. All right, yep, there's Nebraska, I see. He's the chairman of the board of chairman of the board of directors for Leja Bulela Incorporated, and that's a U.S.-based nonprofit that secures justice, fair treatment, and economic growth for the Ilunga Kasai in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Leja Bulela means show that you care in the Tshiunza language, and the organization, which I'm also a part of, recently celebrated its 25th anniversary. Prior to that, Ilunga was the chairman of the board of directors for Africa Volunteer Corps, a service corps of Africans that do long-term volunteer work in African-initiated development projects. And at present, Ilunga is a privacy counsel for Turner Broadcasting Systems, and he's got a lot of good experience, both on the continent and here, dealing in the nonprofit sector. So very excited about that. Last but not least, we've got Dr. Jonathan Mboyo Esole. Dr. Mboyo Esole is a Congolese mathematician working on the geometry of string theory. Does anybody know what string theory is, by the way? All right, so we were talking beforehand, and I was like, hey, what is string theory? And he was like, oh, I'll explain it. I was like, no, I don't need you to explain it. I just want you to know that I have no idea what that is. So, I failed my physics class in high school, so he's probably smarter than half of the room. But anyhow, he is, the important thing is that he is in addition to being a mathematician, he's also one of the next Einstein fellows, which he'll be able to tell us about. And if you were here this morning, you heard the presentation about Malaika. He is intimately involved with them. And in addition to that, just to put what we had in this room in context, Dr. Esole was the recipient of the International Dunia Award in Belgium in 2018. And the 2017 recipient was Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Denis Mukwege. So that's the company that we're in today. So let's give a round of applause for this panel. So as I mentioned, we've got health and we've got education. So I think what I'll try to do is hopscotch between the two, but all the questions are designed to be answered by either the health sector or the education sector. So let's start here. So I'll ask Ms. Mukoka, what is the biggest challenge facing the health or education sector, because you work in both, at the moment?
Well, for me, I think the biggest challenge is probably lack of training in terms of health, lack of awareness in certain diseases, and overall lack of leadership in some instances.
Okay. So, Mr. Matabaro, do you want to answer that from an education standpoint? What do you think the biggest challenge facing the education sector is at the moment?
The education system in our country is facing a lot of challenges. I have traveled across the country, across the 26 provinces we have now, and I realized that the physical infrastructure in many places, especially in rural areas where I mostly work, are almost non-existent. The system itself, the pedagogy itself, must change. It must change because in our schools, if the students don't give the answers as expected by the teachers, those children will fail. So this pedagogy, I don't know the word in English, but I will talk about la pédagogie convergente, convergent pedagogy. If you don't say what I believe and what I'm telling you, you fail. That has to change. So the physical infrastructure, which are almost non-existing, but also the pedagogy, the system, the education system itself, those things must change. I participated in a series of standardized evaluation or assessment of outcomes in schools, and we find out that a notable percentage of children in Congo graduate from either elementary or secondary school with children who are still struggling to read. Instead of reading books to learn, children are struggling to read because children have no access to books. There are even schools where if you give them books, they have no place to keep the books because the infrastructure does not exist. I participated in another evaluation called the early grade math assessment. Many of the children, many of the students who graduate from secondary school have serious problems in mathematics simply because of how they are taught, but also the teachers are not trained, and when children move Congo, go elsewhere, they have challenges and they cannot become medical doctors, or they cannot become what they want to become because of the system in which they studied. So early grade reading assessments show that our children cannot read to learn what are in books, but they are only struggling to read. So the system must change, and the infrastructure must be improved. But also children must be able to eat. Our children don't eat. How do you want somebody who didn't eat to come and spend 4 hours in school every day, go back home? We are the only country on planet Earth where we are spending only 3-4 hours at school and you send the children back home. How are you going to educate a generation spending 3-4 hours in school every day? So children need to be in school the whole day, eat there, be taken care of, access books to make sure we are educating a generation of people who are going to change Congo. So I believe that we need to transform the education system to trigger an emergence of a generation of new leaders of Congo. That's what I believe.
Okay, that was a very good answer. So I'm going to actually stick with the education piece, and I'm going to ask Dr. Esole. So based on what Mr. Matabaro shared with us, can you kind of briefly give us a synopsis of, in your opinion, what needs to be changed in the education system, and how do we find kids that are talented? How do we find kids that have potential, and how do we make them give them opportunities to really advance?
Hello everybody. So our generation is in a very special situation in this century. You know that as Africans we've been taken advantage of for hundreds of years. And for the first time in history, you have African nations that have a chance to completely change their economy, change their position in the world. And so this generation has the responsibility to bring Africa back to where it belongs. And the only way to do it is through education. Just because of the growth of the population, in the coming years, most of the young people on Earth are going to be African kids. So the goal for us to train Congolese students or to train African students is not only an emergency for ourselves, it's actually an emergency for the entire world. So when it comes to the Congo, we have this problem of infrastructure, but even before that, we have a problem of vision. What is the definition of education? Education is a means for a society to project itself to the future. By training its young people, you actually need to have a goal. You need to decide that this is how we see ourselves in 20 years or in 30 years. Once you have that goal, you can then define these are the people we need and the skills we want them to have. So as a country, we usually stop our discussion to talk about just basic politics, but we don't necessarily talk about the process of how do we project ourselves in the future. And that's actually the heart of what education is. So now talking about identifying Brian kids, so the Congo is actually wealth number one of the country. It's never gonna be our diamond or our mines. The real worth of the Congo is the people. And our people are smart, they are really bright. I've been in situations where you see Congolese kids doing better than everybody else when they actually have nothing to start with. I'm going to give 2 examples. I'm part of the Next Einstein Forum, where we have a lot of mathematical schools across Africa. We have one in Kigali, and the best student in the school in Kigali is a student from the city of Bukavu, from the Congo. You take this competition called Miss Geek Africa, where they try to identify the young girl in Africa who is the best in like computing, like coding and so on. The winner, Josephine, is a little sister that I mentor myself. She's from Goma. So these are kids who basically went on top, having no resources for their own country. So when I look at the Congo, I always think of it as a huge opportunity for this world to develop a new generation of scientists, of thinkers, of philosophers, but we need to give this kid a chance. So we as adults, we have this responsibility that when we think about the future of the Congo, we can always talk about business and everything. It doesn't mean anything if we don't put the focus on our children. This is our heritage to this world.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. That was also a great response. Lots to think about there. So Ilunga, as someone who has practiced and operated in the healthcare sector here in Congo, from a legal perspective, just give us from your experience, what changes need to be made by stakeholders? Those stakeholders can be the government, the diaspora, practitioners on the ground, in order to positively impact the healthcare sector in Congo right now.
Thank you, Tshiunza. And thank you to the folks who have organized this conference. It's a real pleasure to be up here on this esteemed panel. So for just a little bit of context, I approach this from the perspective of someone that was born and raised here in the United States with roots in the Congo. So as someone that at the age of 25 went to the Congo for the first time, and then when I went there for the first time, I worked with a nonprofit within the legal sector working on human rights. I went back again a second time in my late 20s, I should say, to work with the Congolese government, specifically the military, to work on conflict resolution between the military and the civilian population. And my background, as Tshiunza mentioned, is one of an attorney. So I've studied and practiced the law here in the United States. And that's my approach and sort of my prism from which I approach this question of what the challenges are and what the things that we can do for stakeholders. So the first thing I would mention is the Convention on the Rights of Children. The Congolese government is a signatory of that convention. They've ratified that convention, which means that they accept the obligations that are on all the countries. I think there are 194 countries that have signed. It's one of the most widely ratified and signed treaties that exist. And so what that does, or what it provides, at least in Article 24, is certain rights to children when it comes to access to healthcare. And I'll talk about children specifically because I think that really ties in with what the rest of the panel here is talking about. Now there are ways to enforce this, right? Either as a citizen you can go up through the legal system, you can try to enforce your rights there. My experience has been, and I should also mention that I worked at the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. My experience has been that when you have a legal answer to a social problem, oftentimes you won't get a solution for years. It may take decades. The Rwandan genocide happened in 1994. There's still people being prosecuted for those crimes right now. We don't have that time for our children, for the people that are most desperate for these responses. So I think what's critical there is to have the social response in addition to the legal response. There are challenges, obviously, and we recognize them with the government, with transitions, with stakeholders, with initiatives, and what's important and what's a priority for the government, right? In many instances, it could be the economy. We had a panel earlier today that talked about ways to improve on that. But I think, as a general matter, it takes organizations and individuals that are doing things like the Mutombos, the building hospitals and health centers, and interacting with the civilian population and the social population. And part of engendering that, I think, means a couple of things. The first thing I would say is to continue to inspire people. There are many people that enter into these fields and want to do great things and want to do good work. And I see it all the time here in the United States. And we get burned out and we decide, well, maybe that's not something that, you know, my energy is worth dedicating to. And I would encourage everyone that's here that has that those feelings perhaps in terms of the work that you're doing to look around, because everyone is here for a reason. It's because we have that hope, that vision, that desire to really improve the things that are going down on the ground for folks that need it the most. The second thing is to recognize the dignity of individuals, the dignity within ourselves, and to really promote that in everything that we do. So in terms of Leja Bulela, one of the initiatives and one of the desires I think that's critical for us is to portray the people that we support, that we are positioning in a way that they can support themselves, to show their dignity in ways that that don't necessarily denigrate them or make you pity people. Because these people have integrity and dignity, and that's something that we should, I think, embrace. The last thing I'll mention from a privacy perspective, and as I think about how we as an organization are moving forward, here in the United States you have laws that protect people and their privacy. One of the more profound laws is the Health Information Privacy Accountability Act. It's called HIPAA. I'm sorry, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA. Apologies. So that provides people with certain rights to their information, certain core principles. And why did we create this sort of structure of privacy protections within the United States? We did it because that is one of the treasure troves of information for individuals. That's why people try to steal that information to do all kinds of nefarious things. I think, and I'll sum it up here really quickly, just because I know there are other questions, but I think we need to start thinking about, as technology intersects with industries like health and education, that those kinds of challenges are going to exist as well. Whether it's the process of advertising medication to people that may not have been vetted the proper way, whether it's people trying to acquire information about who your family members are for purposes of voting or whatever else. As we move to a place where technology is beginning to become connected through the health and education sector, we need to be aware of the potential ways that this can be used in a negative way and be prepared for that kind of thing. So I'll stop there.
Awesome, great answer. So I'm going to switch a little bit here. Most of you were here this morning for when the women had their panel, and they discussed a lot of really important things. But one of the realities, I think that's fair to say, is that in both the health and education sector, I think that women have been neglected or even left behind. It was discussed this morning, you know, when people have lots of children, they often send their boys to school, and they don't really focus on the young ladies. So I want to ask Ms. Mukoka real quickly to if she thinks that things are trending positively now where we are, and if they're not. And then I also want Dr. Esole to chime in as well with your work with the Maika Foundation.
Well, I think that, you know, being a Congolese and being a woman, I personally like to be positive, you know, on my outlook of my country and my people. This was probably mentioned in the morning, but women are the pillars of Congolese society, whether we like it or not. Yet, I do think that, you know, we're very much ignored. So, in terms of when you say positive, there is that aspect where women, we take control of what we have to do, whether that is recognized or acknowledged. We don't seem to mind. We do what we have to do. At BOMOKO, we have an agricultural initiative, and we have female farmers who literally work day and night just to send their kids to school. And I'm not, you know, I'm not downing the men, but at the end of the day, it's mom that sends the kids to school, it's mom that pays the bills, it's mom that's out in the farm from, dawn to dusk, trying to make sure that her children eat. With that being said, I do feel, I know we're not touching upon the government or politics per se, but I do feel that there is a new wave. And this is the time that change can be made with regards to how women in our society are the respect that we should be given, and the protection also that comes with that. I do think that there are very positive things that are going on right now. As you know, our First Lady is very much into that, and I really commend her for the work that she is doing. Just long story short, she talks about, abuse, physical abuse, so emotionally, physically, in terms of women. And it's funny because a lot of Congolese, when she came out with that, I was in Kinshasa, and a lot of them said, what's the big deal? Just because a woman gets beat by her husband, like that's nothing new. And I commend her for standing up and saying, no, it may not be new, but it has to stop. So I do think that we are taking positive strides towards what should be, and in order not to stay in what has been our reality. And I acknowledge the presence of all the women that I see here, because I do think that although they say that behind every great man is a greater woman, I do feel that we can change that narrative as well to say behind every great woman is a great man. And our men need to take responsibility and start acting upon that, whether it's in healthcare, in education, whatever it is.
So I have the privilege to work with the Malaika Foundation, and it's a very special structure because it is run in a very different way. So you have seen Noella was here this morning, and the leadership at Malaika, it's a peaceful leadership, where basically you have women in position of power who keep on asking everybody in the room their opinion. So the way I run my class, I teach a class via Skype to Malaika girls. My students are between 13 and 14 years old. So because of the time difference, so sometimes I wake up at 5 a.m. In the morning. And this is why I meet my students. It's usually my favorite moment of the week when I meet them. And the opportunity to do this came for the following reason. So in the Congo, everybody knows what happened with the war. The body of our women was actually the battlefield number one, because sometimes when you want to destroy a society, the best way is to really go to the root, and the root of an African society is the women. So we are known as this place where basically women are being abused. And so usually people react to this by saying we have to be careful to not talk about it too much. What I would say is that it gives us a huge responsibility, because we have to switch this narrative by being the country where women are being abused to being the country that put women first. And again, so our generation has the opportunity to do this. So when I won the next Einstein Forum award, so one thing that I said was that I was not going to be spending my time talking about string theory to the universities of Africa, but I will be working with young girls in small schools, in small villages, and that's what Malaika gave me as an opportunity. So what you see is that the girls in our school are coming from very poor family, but when you meet them, the first thing you realize is the dignity that you see in these young girls. They stand their ground, they tell their opinion, they tell their stories, and you really feel like you have a sense of respect for who they are. And as a teacher, you have an opportunity to bring this generation of women to another level. So we treat a lot about the class we do. That's because I cannot give a class to every girl in the Congo, but we want to send through technology the message that this is a national priority. And to go back to the link between technology and education, if you look at the numbers, it's impossible in the Congo to change education by just using the traditional techniques. Because as you will say better than me, we need to train too many teachers. So the only way for us to have a chance is to actually use technology. So when people talk about fiber optic in the Congo, what they don't realize is that this is an open door to education. If we
talk about how they need to stand out and make sure peace is not only the absence of war. Pillar number 2 is pragmatic entrepreneurship. When you go to Congo, I'm coming from Bukavu, South Kivu, but all the way on the border, you will see people from Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, bringing eggs to Congo. And I said, why? Why eggs should come from Uganda? Our elder brother Louis runs a mining, but ask him, where do the food, the people or the staff he has, where do the food come from, the food people are eating? I went to talk to these mining companies, Bandro, Alpha Mine, and everything. The food is coming from the other side of the country. And I say, why can't we teach our children to dirt their hands? In Congo, when you hold a big degree, you become an enemy of dirting your hands. We need to teach them to dirt their hands and stand up against malnutrition. How are we going to be a big country of 85 million people, but the rate of malnutrition is very high? We need to go down there and teach our children, raise and educate a new generation looking at Congo with a pragmatic entrepreneurship perspective. So at Congo Peace School, what we are trying to do in entrepreneurship is to teach the children how to raise pigs, goats, chickens. At the end of the day, if we have 5,000 eggs that we can sell and feed the children, so because we offer free food at school, even at the end of the year, we have children who can go out and practice this at home. They can feed our people. So pillar number 3 is transformational leadership. We need to change leadership. But this is based on the promotion of positive values. That's why every week at Congo Peace School, we have a name of the week. We have week integrity. We have week equality. And last year, the girls in the room were very happy hearing for the first time being told the boys and the girls are equal. Some girls were very happy and asking them why. They said, because this is the first time, 15 years old girls be hearing for the first time they are told them and the boys are equal. So we have weak equality. It is a school where we need to start telling our young boys and girls that they are equal. In response to your question, believe me, there are some men on the ground giving value, accepting that women are very strong. My mother never went to school. She's from a family of 8 siblings, and there were 6 boys and two girls. The girls never got the opportunity to go to school for no other reason than their gender. But the two of the girls are the only who have been able to send their children to school. So, who is now intelligent? So, I believe that it is at school where we need to start telling our children that the boys and the girls are equal. In churches, I have nothing against churches, but it should have changed. And pillar number 4 is we are trying to use mental health interventions in school settings. Mental health, why? You know where we are coming from, we know where we are, and we know where we are going. So in schools, in Congo, that's why I talked earlier that the system must change. If a child fails to give the right answer, the teacher doesn't want to understand why the child could not give the right answer. You will see schools must change and must not be places where children are punished, are beaten, are insulted, but schools must be places where children are encouraged to dream and become who they want to become in their life. So, those are the 4 pillars. Those are the 4 pillars we are developing at Congo Peace School, and that's why we need to keep the children in school from morning to evening to make sure we are contributing, we are going with them in this long journey, helping them to become who they want to become. So the theory of saying we are a big country with a high rate of malnutrition with no entrepreneurship skills being taught in schools. We think that needs to change. We will be a big country when our children graduate from school and they can do something in the country. So our approach is called the social antibiotic approach, where at least when you graduate from school, you can solve at least one problem. Instead of creating local militia, armed groups, after graduating from school, and you say no job, nothing at all, we need to start changing the paradigm from school settings. That's what we are trying to do. And for that, we have some fishing ponds. We have a small farm that we are developing around the school. We have some rabbit, we have some chicken around the school, and try to help our children understand the connection between what we are, what we eat, where we live, help this new generation contribute to the restoration of our ecosystem, our environment, by tree planting. If we plant many trees, we believe that the birds are going to come back, and when the birds come back, they will eat mosquitoes, and when there are no mosquitoes, there are no malaria, and our children will live in a good environment. You know the rate of mortality due to malaria, and you know how much money the World Health Organization is investing in fighting malaria. You know how much money the World Food Program is investing in bringing food from America to Congo after war. So we believe that we don't need the World Food Program in Congo. We need government and people like you, investors, entrepreneurs, to come and help our children in schools to understand that we have all the solution to all our problems. We need to farm, we need to get our own food and feed our children so that they can move forward and become who they want to become. That's what we are trying to do. And also, we are fighting deforestation by encouraging children to plant more trees by using an approach we call from manures to energy, by biomass. So we have a few goats, a few pigs around the school, and we can have the manure, and we can transform this in making sure we can have the gas to use to cook the food at the school cafeteria. And instead of cutting the trees, we use what we have around us, and we understand this entire integrated system. So that's what I believe. Congo Peace School is a network, but we are still at our school number one, and we want to go everywhere across the country and make sure we can have this model. And I believe that when our children graduate, if they come here, ils ne seront pas complexés. They won't be, I don't know the word in English. So that's what we are trying to do, and that's why I came here to ask for your support. The money we used to build this school came from one family foundation in California. I told them I need to build a school. Showing them the budget, they said this is too much, $500,000 to build this school. And they said, we are afraid. Can this money be used in Congo without being stolen? I told them, we will do it. They went to sell their apartment and gave me $400,000 to build the school. We started building the school, and somebody else came in, supported, and the school exists. We have a preschool, we have elementary school, and we have a secondary school with a computer and conference room, but with no computer because there is no energy. We have a cafeteria, and we have 2 blocks of boarding houses for both girls and boys. I came from Congo only to participate in this event because I felt very connected. This is for me the very first time since I've been traveling back and forth between Congo and the US. This is the first time I sit in front of my brothers and sisters, and I feel I can go back right after this. I came only for this conference. When I was talking with Jim and he said, are you coming for other businesses? I said, no, I'm coming only to meet you, my brothers and sisters, because I strongly believe in the power of our togetherness, and we can change Congo. Nobody will change Congo.
So I'm gonna bring everybody back into the conversation real quick. because all these individuals represent organizations, and I've been able to speak to each of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Dr. Esole, can you, and I'm going to let you know what I want you to discuss, but I want you to give us a success story from any one of the foundations, either the next Einstein Forum or Malaika. Give us a success story. For you, Ilunga, I want you to talk about the practical steps that Leja Bulela has taken and what actions we will be taking, hopefully next year, in order to impact the health of folks on the ground. And then for you, Ms. Mukoka, I want you to talk about the continuing education that you have for nurses and other health practitioners and what impact that's having. So who would like to start? All right.
So, Mr. Amani, Israeli mean peace. You're truly a man of peace. You have inspired me and you have inspired all of us. And actually, I would like to follow up on what you said by giving an experience from my own life. So when he talked about mental health and students not being abused at school, that's something that resonates very much with myself. So today I'm known because I win awards and I have famous theorems or whatever, but that's not how I look at myself. So when I was a kid, I was a special needs child. So I needed a special assistant to learn to speak and to write. And so what you are doing in your school, you're basically empowering people like me, who were the nobodies of my class when I was in primary school, to be the best people that we could be. And so my promise to you today is I actually will come to your school on my own farm. And so I taught Harvard for 80 years. I've been 2 years at Northeastern University. And I had the opportunity to see some of the brightest minds in this world. But when he's talking about planting trees, make no mistake, the people we train at university, it's not because they have an engineer degree from MIT that they are good people. What makes an education successful is not your technical skills, but what are you going to do with it? And this is not something that universities and fancy schools necessarily teach. But this is something that you are teaching in your school. And so when I go there, it's not only to talk to the student. I would like to sit myself there and be a student myself to see what you're doing. And so I just would like people to clap and congratulate.
All right, so Ilunga, do you want to talk about real quick some of the steps that Leja Bulela has taken to impact people during our work?
Yeah, so I will mention, as I mentioned before, our health clinic that is in Chibombo Chimwani, a rural community in Kasai province that serves about 50,000 residents. We've been there now, we'll be celebrating our 10th year, I think in 2 years of building the health center and serving the community that's over there. Following up, it's so touching to hear some of what's going on here, and I'd be remiss if I didn't try to, I think, channel some of that in my closing remarks here. But I think one of the things that is critical for all of us, and to your point here, is to really, as leaders and as individuals that are engaged in this space, to continually be trying to learn. And it's one thing that I stress upon the board members that are within my organization, that we're not people that have all the answers, that we have to go places and see how people are doing things that maybe are different, to really expound and broaden our horizons. In Chiluba, there's a saying, it's kwenda kumona malu, which means when you travel, when you go places, you see things, right? And so, if anything, that's what I would impart on you all. I will also lastly just note that we have an annual conference every year. Next year, our conference is going to be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We've been doing this for 25 years. And the following year also, we'll be having our first a trip of most of our membership to the clinic with the Christian Brigade. This is a nonprofit organization that's been doing some phenomenal work in Angola with the Vice President of Angola and within the health space. And they'll be accompanying us for, I think it's a week-long intervention, essentially, where we're working with the local population, the doctors that are in our clinic, and serving the local community, whether it's in Bujimai or Chimogo Chimwani. So I'll leave it with that and just say, thank you all for your attention, and I'm really looking forward to engaging with you all after the conference. I spoke to someone and asked them, what was the thing that caught you the most, or what was your most anticipated about this, or most excited about this? And somebody said they heard the 5 billion and they were very excited. I don't know if I can offer 5 billion here, but the networking opportunity is certainly something I'm looking forward to. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Now, Ms. Mukoka, would you like to tell us about the importance of your continuing education program and and some of the seeds that you've seen grow out of that?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I do want to point out is that although we do not know each other, we're all connected. And starting with Mr. Nini, it's the fact that we basically have the same values. BOMOKO also has schools, a boys' school and a girls' school, and we share the same values. And that's why I had reached out to your team last year, and we had great conversation. With regards to the Kasai region, that's where we are starting one of our sickle cell disease awareness campaigns, because it's highly affected. People are not aware, so I feel a connection with you right there. And of course, Jonathan, you visited our school, Lycée Lycée, so we were very happy to have you there, and Noila as well. So I just want to acknowledge that. And it's funny to me because it takes us coming here to New York, to talk about this. This should be done in the Congo. That's just my humble opinion. But with regards to continuing education, we have a nursing school. And one thing that I would like to point out, 4 years ago, former Prime Minister Matabaro sent us 10 girls from Kindu. And he said, I have a hospital, I need the training, I need nurses, do something with these girls. So we took them in, they stayed with us, we made sure that they had apartments where they could stay, they went to school, and let me tell you that those 10 girls graduated a month ago. They're all what you would consider here RNs. And they didn't stay in Kinshasa. They went back to Kindu, each and every one of them. And that's the impact that we need to start showing and proving. It's great to be in New York and to talk about how America can help us, but we can help each other. And also, with regards to the continuing education program, we have an initiative called CEFA. And really that's for medical professionals. You will know, most of you, that during the 90s, there was really a break within our educational system. Some of you know, we used to call it les années élastiques. You go to campus and you can't graduate, you've been there for 10 years. So what we try to do is install a program where we would have outsiders coming in and training medical professionals, nurses, lab techs, and doctors, because we had to close that gap. You will also notice that, healthcare centers in Kinshasa, where I'm from, they grow like mushrooms. You see every street, every block, there's like polyclinique this or centre hospitalier this, and it's very scary because we know that the people working there are not necessarily trained. That is extremely scary, and that's something that our government and us here as a collective need to work on. So when we talk about continuing education, we want to make sure it's great to have your diploma. It's great, to graduate from the University of Kinshasa, but we need to be sure that they are capable of holding the international standard. And that's something that we really, really focus on because our health is at risk. We are dying. I cannot even tell you how many family members I have lost because, something happened, it was midnight, so they went down the street, and there you go. That's it. So with that being said, first of all, I would just like to commend each and every one of you for being here. It warms my heart to see that Congolese people can get together, can speak about these issues, right? Because a lot of times we stereotype ourselves saying, no, we're not going to show up, we're not going to do this. But here we are today, and I really feel that this is the beginning of something great. We're all interconnected. Just right here, we didn't know but we're all interconnected and we can make a change. And just as Mr. Mini said, come help all of us in this, you know? And we need to work together, so thank you.
Awesome.